There she is. So good morning, everyone. I'm going to begin our service this morning here at Fairfax Community Church. Kimberly Elliott, our lovely pastor, is away this week, so we will be doing a service. I will be presiding. My name is Tara, and I'm one of the congregants here, and I think what's so lovely about our church is that it's called the community church, and the community indeed kind of sets the tone and does the work. So here I am, one of the members of the community, stepping up to preside today. So we will begin by lighting our sacred candles. Good morning, Hope. It's good to see you.
Good morning. Nice to see you all.
So let's begin. We have a call to worship, and we can light our candles. And as we do so, we can say our lovely words. The call to worship. O sun behind all suns, I give you greeting this new day. Let all creation praise you. Let the daylight and the shadows praise you. Let the fertile earth and the swelling sea praise you. Let the winds and the rain and the lightning and the thunder honor the sacredness of your sustenance. Let all that breathes celebrate your divine radiance. O God of all life, from the depths of my heart, I welcome your presence in my life this day. So now that we've lit our candles, we will be enjoying a video called Beguiled by Beauty. So Jennifer will put that up. Thank you for your candles. I've got mine here too.
When we accept the non-utilitarian goodness of life, a world that doesn't need a why, we tune into the raw delight in the world. Beauty decenters our ego by helping us realize that life is its own justification. As we let go of how everything relates to us, serves us, benefits us, we begin to appreciate all things for their own worth and beauty. And our desire for their flourishing intensifies. When we turn this idea onto our own selves, we can let go of the expectations of others and the societal standards of beauty in regard to our own worth.
The beauty of the earth, for the glory of the skies,
Thank you. That was lovely. That kind of got us all in our centers, in our hearts, which is where we can be as we say our prayers of the people. So I will share, as you all know, you're invited to communicate your prayer directly to God, Divine Presence, as we hold this sacred space together. Please word your offering as a prayer rather than a narrative offering information. You're invited to open your offering with an address to God, such as God, Creator, Presence of Love, Source of all being, or whatever phrase you use to connect to the divine. Then lift up a prayer of gratitude or a prayer request. And when you finish the prayer, please conclude by saying God in your grace, and the community will reply, "You hear our prayer." Everyone, what I'd like to do now is say with you the prayer of Jesus. It's a translation by W. Wallace. Most compassionate life giver, may we honor and celebrate your presence in all things. May we work with you to establish your new order of justice, peace, and love. Give us what we need for growth and help us through forgiving others to accept forgiveness. Strengthen us in the time of testing that we may resist all evil. For all the tenderness, strength, and love are yours now and forever. Amen. Would someone like to sing the Shema? Joanne?
Yes, I will sing. I hope I get the words right. I don't have it in front of me. So here we go. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad.
Thank you, Joanne. So I'm actually going to read the first sacred text because I rarely read. So I'm going to do that. But could somebody read sacred text number 2? Thank you. All right, I will begin with our sacred text number 1. Ezekiel 31, verses 3 through 7 from the Inclusive Bible. Look to Assyria, once a Lebanon cedar, beautiful branches, dense shade, towering height. Its top among the clouds. Springs nourished it, and deep waters make it grow tall. Their streams flowed around its base, sending their channels to all the trees in the countryside. It was majestic in its beauty, with its spreading boughs, its roots reaching deeply into an abundance of water.
Still by A.R. Ammons. I said I will find what is lowly and put the roots of my identity down there. Each day I will wake up and find the lowly nearby. But though I have looked everywhere, I can find nothing to give myself to. Everything is significant with existence, is in abundance of glory. Nothing is diminished. Nothing has been diminished for me. I said, what is more lowly than the grass? Ah, underneath, a ground crust of dry burnt moss. I looked at it closely and said, this can be my habitat. But nesting in, I found below the brown exterior, green mechanisms beyond the intellect, awaiting resurrection in brain.
Beautiful.
Thank you, Ruth, for reading that. We are now going to move into our sermon, which is a video interview with Dr. Wendy Farley and Marcia McFee. It's Beguiled by Beauty. So we will be, isn't it great? I'm the substitute teacher and I come with videos. So here we are with another video.
Dr. Wendy Farley, it's so great to have you with us. Thank you so much for your inspirational work that we will be digging into, living with, worshiping with the inspiration of it over the next 6 weeks. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. Happy to be here.
Well, Dr. Farley is a colleague of mine at the seminary, and Wendy, I remember a lecture that you did at something that we do called the interdisciplinary lectures, and you began to riff on this idea of the holy and the mystery of the holy in such an incredible way. And so that little glimpse into your teaching, your classroom teaching, was such a wonderful insight into your passion for theology, your passion for spirituality, and your passion for learning and playing with these concepts as a way to deepen our faith. And so I'm excited for our viewers, for these folks, and for the churches to hear you talk about this. And I wanted to start with this idea of the holy that you introduce us to as beguiled by beauty, this sort of cosmic imagery of how the world was formed. Would you take us into that?
I'm happy to. I do love theology, and I think of it as a spiritual practice, a really deep spiritual practice. So I'm very influenced by Pseudo-Dionysius, who was a ancient monk, and he wrote this beautiful book, The Divine Names. And in it, he talks about God being beguiled or charmed by beauty. And because God is charmed by the beauty of creation, God creates creation. So it's this crazy riff on time, and eternity. But it's this sense that God falls in love with the cosmos and manifests the cosmos in space and time, and continues to be totally besotted with the cosmos throughout all eternity. And so it's a lot of the Reformed tradition, which is my own background, is very focused on individual salvation. And these ancient texts they are focused on salvation, of course, but they see that as in this much larger context of the cosmos. And And the things that happen to us, the suffering, are very real, but it's in this this cosmic context of beauty, of being in love with beauty, supporting it. That beauty is what makes everything real. From the funny little things that live at the bottom of the sea to mosses and desert flowers to each human being, beauty is what makes us real. And we can be blinded to that, or focus on other things, or get confused by whether something pretty or not. But from this divine perspective, what makes something real is that it's beautiful.
So by real, so something is, so let's just take an example of just seeing something we see every day, and we get used to it, and we stop really noticing with depth or intention that thing. So what I'm hearing you say, help me if I'm taking this wrong, is that when we stop noticing the depth of something with intention, i.e. beauty, I think that's what you're saying about beauty, is that it is less present to us.
Mm-hmm.
And presence as real. Am I getting this right?
Yeah, that everything, that everything has its integrity as a something or other, embedded in the huge interconnectedness of all things.
Mm-hmm.
And everything has its the beauty and integrity specific to it. And we do get very absorbed in our mind and in our experiences. Our body, our emotions, they're what's most vivid to us. And so that's what is most present to us.
Mm-hmm.
And beauty the ancient world thought of beauty as a thing that distracts us from our ego preoccupation. It entices us
outside of ourselves.
So that something other than our own mind, our suffering, our anxieties, gets our attention. And we enter into this blissful self-forgetfulness because something else is real to us. And and so the idea here is that it's a threshold into the divine way of seeing, which is our capacity for seeing, to participate in this charming zeal for what is, and that you fall in love with it. And it's not that we, in our specific needs and wants and distortions, cease to exist, but that fades into the background a little bit, and the world becomes real to us.
Yeah, so this is really helping me with this idea of beauty, because of course the word beauty itself has become somewhat distorted. I think you liken it to sort of, we've assigned it to the aesthetically pleasing, rather than a depth. So it doesn't have to be like the world's version of pretty, or what culture has said is beautiful, right? That the beauty is a depth. And if you could say just a little bit about this, because it's something that comes up in this first week of worship. We see it not with the eyes, but with the spirit. Tell us a little bit more about how we see something with the spirit.
I had a student do his term project, and he said, when I started this class, this is what I thought beauty was. And he said he Googled beauty, and what comes up is a page of very skinny models.
Right?
And so beauty is this commercialized, fetishized, very narrow idea of what is beautiful and therefore what is not beautiful.
Right.
But beauty isn't a function of prettiness or what you buy or what you possess. It's the exact opposite. And therefore it's not just a visual or auditory thing, although those of course are entryways into beauty. To experience beauty is really a spiritual, it's a function of our spirit. And therefore we are capable, as our spirit kind of gets dull or distorted, to completely fail to see beauty. to experience beauty. So we might want to buy a fancy picture or something, but that's not experiencing beauty. So our spirit can get dulled down and inert to beauty. But likewise, our spirit can come alive to the truth of things. And so once that practice begins to deepen and take hold, everything around us, we realize that dimension of created wonderfulness. Whether it's you might say pretty thing like the view that's in the background here, or whether it's a person you're visiting in hospice who is not physically pretty, but that dignity and that sacred worth and the beauty of the fact that they exist, that they have spirit, that they're beloved, that you begin to recognize.
Yeah. So there's a movie that you mention in your book that I watched, because if you recommend a movie, I'm going to watch it. And it's called Wasteland. And in that, you mentioned that you often assigned this movie to your undergraduate students, I think is what you said, when you sort of to get into this idea of what is beautiful. And it's stunning, and I want to recommend it to everyone. You can rent it fairly inexpensively. And the story of people who work in Brazil, in Rio, at the dump, at the landfill, and they are recyclers, and they do a very important task, but they were seen by society as just like, this is the lowest job you can do. This is what you do at the end of the road. And this artist goes in and creates these beautiful works of art with them, of them. And I'm going to tear up just thinking about it. The moment when they see themselves in a new way, and this work of art is made of the very trash that they recycle. When they see themselves, it is absolutely stunning, that moment of discovering and uncovering. Is that the awakening of the spirit that you're talking about?
Yes, you just gave me goosebumps remembering this film.
Right?
It is, my students would come in and they're like, yeah, movie star, sunsets, and then we would watch that film. And everything changed after that. Yeah. Because you see the beauty that has always been in them. Yeah. They're these trash pickers, and they're in the largest landfill in the world, picking through it for something that could be recyclable, and they get paid by the pound of whatever they dig out of the trash. And they smell bad, they do have the meanest job one can imagine almost. But they have this dignity about them, and they're beautiful beings. Yes. And what he does isn't create beauty. What he does is he uses his art to reveal their beauty. Yes. And to and as you say, the young man who's sort of in a sense a leader, when he's at the exhibit and he sees these amazing works of art, he starts weeping. Yeah. And it changes their lives. It does. It goes and sees and how the different people respond to this. Right. And yeah, that's the seeing. It's, you can look with your eyes at trash pickers and not see a lot of beauty. Yeah. Yeah. And he lets us see what is true all the time. Yeah. And so that is something not with your eyes, it's with your heart, it's with your spirit.
Yeah. And to take this back to the theology of the divine one who is beguiled by beauty, we can almost imagine that cosmic moment of awakening, God's self-awakening to this idea of of beauty in creation. I mean, it's a lovely cosmic sort of theology. Yeah.
Yeah, it's Gerard Manley Hopkins says that the world is God's poem to us. But this, it's poetic to think of God waking up to beauty, because but it says something true at the same time.
Right.
This, and then spinning it into existence. And the other thing about that, Marcia, to notice is that we may not experience trash pickers as beautiful. And if we're on the bus with them, we go, oh, what's that smell? I mean, just be very disrespectful and ignorant of what the presence of this person. But we can imagine that the beloved isn't like that. That what is maimed or distorted or
smelly,
that we became smelly, and that we get very preoccupied with. And there is an element of truth of that, distortions and anger and violence and shame that we feel like take up our whole being or the whole being of somebody else. And we imagine the beloved being aware of all the dimensions of the human experience, but with the divine sight, seeing like what that artist saw and enabled us to see, oh my God, these beings, even in their difficulty or distortion, are so beautiful.
Yes. The truth of who we really are. And we're going to uncover that in some later weeks, go into that piece. But I want to ask you, because this whole idea that beauty, the theology of beauty, but the way into that, or to train our spirit to see in that way, to awaken to that, is through contemplation. So tell us a little bit about, contemplative practices. We're going to be, as we go through these 6 weeks, we're going to be trying to do some contemplative practices. Now that can be, it's not one thing. All of us probably right now have a stereotype in our mind of what that is, but just share with us a little bit about the connection of contemplation, contemplative practices, as a way to train our spirits to see that truth.
Well, one thing contemplation means would be that family of practices where the mind and ego are stilled and we kind of fall into a deeper intimacy with the divine. So through meditation or prayer with scripture. And those are very powerful practices. And they serve an amazingly sweet function by giving us access to more of our modes of awareness, more things, more ways to be aware. Or I think of it like we think of our experience as a little room in a huge palace, and contemplative practice makes you keep opening doors and windows and saying that my mind is so much bigger than I realize. But if we have as you say, stereotype that what contemplation is going into your room and shutting the door and sitting there for 20 minutes and fighting with your brain because you can't possibly calm it down, and then saying, oh, God, I can't do this, I'm bad at meditation.
You've been inside my head.
And some people find that kind of practice extremely life-giving, and others find that kind of practice either impossible because they have little kids running around or whatever. My mother could no more do this than fly to the moon. So when I think about contemplative practices, I include that. But I also think of contemplative practice as a disposition, a way of experiencing the world, not a particular practice. And so it's reorienting how we live our daily life. Punctuated by practices, where you can calm and enter into prayer, or maybe you chant or sing, or but a contemplative way of life is reorienting ourselves so that we, in this kind of sweet way, are constantly integrating what we do as prayer.
Mm-hmm.
So whether you're taking care of your fussy baby or working in the garden or watching your mind as you drive down the road and you suddenly get enraged at a driver and you go, oh, there I am, angry again over something I don't need to be angry about. So it's a way of being in the world, constantly letting everything around you be prayer.
And certainly right now, and some people may be watching this post-COVID, we hope, but right now we're in the middle of it, and we are in our houses more than we have ever been. And so in some ways, for me, it's freeing to think that right here where I am, I don't have to be in a normal moment for me to do that. In fact, this could be a way for me to deepen my spirituality right now in a way that honors the small things, that I can sit in my favorite chair and I don't have to be doing something, but I can deepen my awareness of the bird song that I'm hearing outside, or the chimes that, like we have in our series, the wind chimes. And in fact, I have wind chimes right outside that were the inspiration for the sense of just like the wafting, the movement of the beauty of the breeze, and how the chimes awaken me, my consciousness to that. And that in itself can be a contemplative practice that just helps me be more present in this moment, and appreciate this moment for what it is.
Yes, I think that's exactly right. That if we have this idea of contemplation as having the bar way up high, it becomes impossible for most of us. But if you think of it as exactly, it can be 10 seconds.
Yeah.
Where, your children are crying, or you're irritated with your partner, or you're feeling very discouraged about the news or whatever, and you have to take the trash out. And so you take the trash out and you look at the sky, and the sky is spangled with amazing stars. And you can't spend 10 minutes meditating, and because your little kid is inside and you have to get back. But you can take 10 seconds. It's like your soul can open for 10 seconds, and suddenly you're refreshed.
Yeah.
You paid attention.
You put your roots down into the water in that moment.
That's right.
Our scripture from Ezekiel for this week is that idea that the tree that spreads its branches, that supports other life. The birds nest in its branches, and the animals have their babies in the shade underneath the tree. But it connects that to the fact that the tree can do this because its roots are deep in that water. It itself is getting sustenance. And so in that opening, we get that deep well.
That's it. I was raised Presbyterian, and that message didn't get through to me loud and clear. It may have gotten clearer to other members of my family, but that you can't, what you give out is what you've got. And that by putting your roots in the divine, using this image of water as the divine goodness, and that nourishes you and refreshes you, you can't really do the work of spirit without that. And so many of us are very dedicated to our work and are very preoccupied with it, and leave out or minimize the condition which makes it possible. And it may
until we run out of steam. Yes, and then we go
sick, or we lose our temper, or we rely on alcohol, or we find something to kind of prop us up.
Right.
But when I think about contemplative practices, it can be retreats for a week-long retreat, or But it can also be these tiny
Tiny.
micro slices.
Yeah.
And it's kind of miraculous to think that just switching your attention, even for a few seconds. So your children are having a little temper fit, and you're caught up in it, and you just switch your attention and think, oh my God, my children are so beautiful. They're in a bad temper right now, but my God,
Mhm.
I love them so much.
Mhm.
And then you go back to the drama of, you know, if they're not supposed to hit each other or whatever. But you can take these micro moments. You can take 10 minutes to look at the sky, or hear something, or even look at books with pictures in them of nature, or a poem, or a piece of music. There's so many ways where you create a microclimate of the spirit that feeds you in a way that's completely disproportionate to the amount of time you gave it.
Yeah, that's right. So it reaps way more rewards than the effort you put into it. And that's the thing with practices. That's why we call it a contemplative practice, is that the more you practice it, the more and I'm a neuroscience geek, but the more your brain begins to automatically or second nature begin to crave those moments and look for more of those moments and notice more of those moments. And so it takes a little while to get into that mindset, but hopefully, because we're spending these 6 weeks with this mindset, this contemplative way of life, you say, we will practice ourselves into more awareness. Now, lastly, I just want us to get a sense of, and the whole rest of the series is going to continue to develop this, but this connection between contemplation and compassion. So contemplating on the beauty of the world leads us to deeper compassion and justice. Help us make the connection.
If when a mother holds their infant for the first time or the thousandth time, and it cries in the night, the mother doesn't do a moral calculus. Well, some mothers might, but the kind of ideal mothers say doesn't do a moral calculus. Should I do this? Do I deserve this? What's the ratio of me to them? Will it hurt me if I no, the mother, like it's a blade in her arm, jumps out of bed and goes to the crying baby. And because she's in love with the baby and perceives the child's sacred beauty. So when we fall in love with the world, and it's like we fall in love with it the easy way first. Nature is really easy to fall in love with. Human faces that are dear to us are really easy to fall in love with. When we fall in love with something, we don't do a moral calculus if it's in difficulty or suffering or threatened. Our heart is broken by the suffering, and we do what we can. We respond in whatever way is appropriate, so that it's not something we have to generate. A lot of compassion training kind of assumes we're basically selfish, and you train a lot to be compassionate. And I am sure that has some truth to it. But I think of it the other way. If you, rather than kind of trying to generate compassion out of your selfishness, if you just fall in love with the world, if you perceive that it's beautiful, you can't be indifferent to its harm. I was reading about Rachel Carson this morning, and she says, if you awake in wonder to the world, you simply can't want to destroy it. It's impossible. If you perceive for a second that the person before you is human, then their joy and their suffering matter to you. So it is birthed automatically, you might say. out of awareness. I think of it almost like a trick, that we allow ourselves to be beguiled by beauty. And then after we've opened our heart and let it come out of the safety of our rib cage, we go, oh, there's a lot of suffering out here. The reason this particular pathway to compassion, I think, is significant is because it's born out of these deep roots that are being nourished. So that as we awaken to suffering and we mind, we're compassionate about it, we're not just left out with our raw individual empathy. We're experiencing something of the divine within us, flowing through us. And so the very fact that we're waking up compassionately to the world is because we're nourished, we're held up, we're giving resource.
Yeah, and we have the bandwidth to actually
Yes.
be present in that way.
Yeah, and when that balance gets wrong, that where we're just in situations that are too difficult, and we feel our spirit just like being maimed and twisted.
Yeah.
To the extent that it's possible, that's where you realize how important it is to refresh yourself, to feed yourself on the divine goodness, to let yourself be loved, to let yourself be cherished.
Because the divine one is beguiled by our very beauty and loves us that much. Yeah. Wendy, thank you so much. We look forward to the next 5 sessions with you. And yeah, thank you for letting me join you on your virtual balcony overlooking the beauty.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right.
Blessing.
Many blessings.
Well, that was lovely. We have a little time now to reflect and to share anything that how we might want to respond to what we just saw.
Wow. Beautiful.
Thank you, Charles. Thank you.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
There are words, but they're not appropriate. It's like actually it's a very romantic song.
It's beautiful.
Thank you.
I think that
Absolutely gorgeous. Just thank you. What a gift.
I felt like it was a chance to kind of do some of that quiet moment, contemplative opportunity, just being in that music. So thank you so much.
You're welcome.
It reminded me of Herbie Hancock not Herbie Hancock.
Keith Jarrett.
Keith Jarrett, thank you. Ding, ding, ding. That's it. Yes, Keith Jarrett. That beautiful stream of consciousness music that just unfolds. So that was perfect.
Yeah, it's actually a modern genre but it comes from back there. The modern genre, they call it neo soul.
Okay.
And it's like this smooth, meditative, romantic kind of
Yes.
music. Usually it's got a beat and you can dance to it too.
That's beautiful. Thank you so, so much.
Oh, glad you like it.
Our time, this is the time now for an offering. And of course we are virtual. So if you feel inclined, we do have a link in the bulletin and you may donate there. I do feel that Charles gave us a lovely opportunity for meditation. So that is our meditation today, to just sink into those beautiful notes. And so I would like to send us forth now with a closing unison blessing. Does that mean we are to say it in unison? I'm not sure, but I will read it. And if anyone would like to join me, they may. This is by John Philip Newell. There is no plant in the ground, but tells of your beauty, O divine beloved. There is no creature on the earth, there is no life in the sea, but proclaims your goodness. There is no bird on the wing, no star in the sky. There is nothing beneath the sun, but is full of your blessing. Lighten my understanding of your presence all around, all Holy One. Kindle my will to be caring for creation. This has been wonderful for me, and I hope for you. I'm so thankful for this community. Somebody asked me what I was going to do this weekend, and the thing I could say was, I'm going to church. I don't have any other sure things, but I'm going to church.
Thank you, Tara.
Thank you, Tara.
We led service.
Yes.
So we will do our virtual Alleluia together. And if we want to do a joyful noise, we can do that, but we will come together and sing our closing Alleluia. 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 Thank you. Thank you, all of you, for showing up, for making this such a wonderful circle and time spent together. If anyone wants to linger for coffee hour, they may. I am spent, so I am going to conclude. But it's been an absolutely joyful morning, and I thank you all so very much.
Thank you, Tara.
Thank you, Tara.
Thank you, Tara. Beautiful.
Wonderful.